Hi. Welcome back to Continuing the Conversation with Sadie, the podcast where we slow down, breathe a little deeper, and explore the heart of care through honest dialogue and the people who quietly make the world a more human place. As we step into series two, I wanted to bring you voices who don't just work in care, they expand it. People who weave compassion, curiosity, and courage in a way they support others. And today's guest is absolutely one of those people. Dr. Julia Frearson, I think I've said that right,
You
is
have?
a chartered clinical psychologist and integrative yoga teacher. Struggle myself there. Registered with the HCPC and the British Psychological Society. She has worked in psychological services since 2001 and as a qualified psychologist in Gloucestershire since 2006. My God, there were some big words there. Through her practice, Mind, Body, Perform, based here in Gloucestershire, she offers therapy, yoga, supervision, and embodied well-being support. You can find her work at mindbodyperform.co.uk, where she shares thoughtful writing, resources, and reflections on healing and human flourishing. I think I might get some now, actually. Julia is a shining light in our local community. Warm, grounded, and quietly powerful. She has supported so many people across Gloucestershire with her blend of clinical expertise and deep humanity. She brings together psychology, compassion focused therapy, EMDR, body based interventions, and yogic philosophy, creating a therapeutic space that's important, that is both evidence based and deeply human. Wow. She works for people experiencing low mood, repetitive thinking, shame, relationship difficulties, physical discomfort, and the many forms of suffering that don't always fit neatly into diagnostic boxes. And she does so with a presence, and I've witnessed this myself, that is steady, kind, and profoundly respectful.
Aw,
What I love about Julia and why I wanted her here is that she embodies what she teaches. She believes in people's capacity to flourish, and she supports that with a blend of science, embodiment, and a genuine care. Her presence in Gloucestershire is felt by many, a source of warmth, wisdom, and continued support. Julia, welcome. Long intro
thank
there, I
you.
know, but well
My
deserved.
gosh.
It's such a joy to have you here, and we're just going to go straight in because I cannot wait
Thank
to
you
talk
so
to you.
much.
Amazing.
What an introduction. Thank
It's
you.
every word is true. Brilliant. We're going to start with roots, motivation, and the path into practice for series two. So, my first question, Julia, you've been working in psychological services for over 2 decades. What first drew you into this work? And when did you realize that supporting people through suffering and growth was where you were meant to be?
Gosh, 2 decades. Thanks for the reminder how old I am.
We love experience. That's what we're here
I love
for.
it. It's a long time, and weirdly, I met with somebody. I went to supervision yesterday for
Hmm.
myself, and I met with someone who supervised me 20 years ago, and we were reflecting how it felt to reconnect after 20 years, and how actually
Absolutely.
inside we
Mm.
feel the same person despite all that age that's gone by. But back to your question. So
Mm.
I I suppose that I was one of those young people at school that was able to listen to my peers, and
Hmm.
I became someone that all sorts of other young people in my year were able to talk to. And I seem to be able to help in that way. Not because I had any sort of skills or tools, or I definitely hadn't learned anything that I was doing in those conversations, but I was attracting people towards me,
Mhm.
but tolerating that really well. I quite enjoyed being someone that people sought out for help and care ultimately. And I suppose I was probably about 15, 16 years old. So when I was thinking then about next steps and careers, I was already thinking, how can I do that for a living?
Mm,
Because it feels like something I'm naturally able to step into. I didn't know what that was called. I didn't know
yeah.
how that would look. And I suppose I unraveled that as I got a little bit older. But it definitely was very early on. I was
Mhm.
quite clear what I wanted to do well before I'd left secondary school.
Yeah. Did you have any role models that helped you discover that as well? Because I've got some guests on here who they were influenced by their parents, things like that,
Yeah.
or somebody close to
Yeah,
them.
I don't know,
Mm.
I think I don't know. I was a middle child, so I was definitely in a family that had to communicate.
Mhm.
And both my parents are are intelligent, capable
Yes.
people, and have a lot of wisdom between themselves. So I suspect that some of that wisdom was being passed through to me
Yes.
as a young person. My parents were a little bit, let's say, a little bit different. Not very mainstream in lots of different ways. And they encouraged us to think and be kind as a priority, to be as good as we could be, as kind as we could be,
Yeah.
as well as to learn and to find our feet in the world in that way and to kind of gain mastery in things. But definitely there was something about all three of us, me and my siblings, that stood out from some of our peers. And I
Mm.
remember my dad tells this story a little bit, but he was a lecturer when I was about 5, 6
Wow.
years old, living in Hull, and he had a fellow lecturer come from another country who had small children.
Mm.
And those small children who weren't English, couldn't speak English very well, and were obviously very, very new, were placed next to us in the classroom at school because we were children that could be trusted to look after other children. So that was my older sister and me. So I guess it goes back quite a long way,
That is a
probably more than I'm aware.
Yeah, that's a lovely answer, and thank you. I think you've really given a nice picture actually of how the environment can shape us. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing all that with us. That's great.
It's all right.
Um, your approach blends clinical psychology, compassion focused therapy. Here we go again. EMDR. Did we get there?
Yes, reprocessing. Oh, every time someone asks me what EMDR is, even though I know on the
Yeah,
spot I can't remember
you
one of
just
what
do
the
it.
letters
Yeah.
is. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
reprocessing is what the R stands for.
Thank you. Um, thank you. Yoga philosophy and body-based practices.
Sure.
Looking back, what experiences shape the way you integrate? I can't say that word, sorry. Uh,
Integrate. You got
integrate.
it.
Thank you.
You
You're
got it.
helping me now. I've got problems processing
That's
mind
all right.
and body in your work today.
Oh, it's a big question. A lot of it comes from my own lived experience.
Mm.
So a lot of it comes from a combination of the learning that I have been exposed to, privileged
Yes.
enough to be able to experience that learning and seek that learning out, but equally the application of that learning towards myself and to people I knew
Mm.
prior to sort of becoming a therapist, if you like, I suppose. Um, so my own lived experience and pulling from everything I was learning and applying it to myself was really it really consolidated
Mm.
how
Good
I
word.
think people can be helped.
Yes.
So my lived experience, but equally, I started out working in the NHS in a very clinical
Ah,
psychology
right.
um,
Didn't know that.
uh, way. Yeah, so most of my career has been in the NHS. I've worked in the NHS for 25 years. Um, but as a clinical psychologist, we're a bit of jack of all trades. So
Mm.
we're not trained in one specific mode of therapy. We're trained in several. But
That
the
makes
NHS
sense.
has. Yeah, but the NHS has a kind of way of working with people that fits with identifying a diagnosis and then applying a particular treatment. For clinical psychologists, that's quite tricky because we
Mm,
try to blend our approaches and actually work on a very individualized level. And I was finding myself a little bit hamstrung, a little bit stuck.
yes,
So I looked for other ways to train, partly as an escape potentially from working in the NHS to build a different career. And it was only then
absolutely.
when yeah, it was only when I retrained as a yoga teacher that I realized that there was a whole other way of supporting people to
Yeah.
grow. And it was those two that allowed me the opportunity to blend.
I would say, I mean, what I personally love about you is your holistic approach.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Oh,
Um, you are just absolutely amazing. You've got so many skills, even
oh,
now.
you're too kind.
You're just, no, everybody does it. They don't realize what skills they've got and how much they carry and what, you know, what they already have inside them.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely fantastic. And my mum used to be a
Mm.
holistic practitioner, so
Oh,
I
nice.
see it really clearly in people, and
Yeah.
I just love
Yeah.
it because it's just, it works.
Yeah.
It works so well. I love it. In your profile, you talk about helping people flourish in body and mind using models of humanity. Again,
Mm.
another one of your super skills, and approaches that reduce self blame.
Sure.
What have the people you've supported taught you that no training course ever could? I
Yeah,
personally
good
love this question.
question. It's a great question. It really makes you think, doesn't it? And
That's
it's
what we're here to
deep.
do. Mm.
Yeah, so I think on many, many occasions I have thought I knew what I was going to be doing with
Mm.
a person based on information I had gathered or information that they had given, and that all had gone out of the window when I met them. Um, One of the things you don't learn from textbooks and learn from material and tools is how unique every single person is and how there is no one size suits all. Um,
Absolutely.
so there's that, which is really, really important to continue to remember, especially in this day and age where we're, seeing young people reaching for labels and disorders
Yes.
and
Yes.
problems to describe sometimes quite healthy and adaptable behavior for their circumstances.
Brilliant.
So there's that deep uniqueness, and then the other thing is that sense of resilience that people can just keep on picking themselves up, digging
Hmm.
deep, and we go again, and we go again.
Love
And
that.
whilst it might not look neat and tidy to other people on the outside, or it might not fit neatly into social boxes and socially
Mm.
acceptable boxes, when you actually spend time with the person, they have these deep-seated survival skills that have been patterned into them to just keep on going. And
Mm.
that's really difficult to kind of get from learning. You have to have that felt connection in the room with somebody.
100%. And
Mm,
me and you've got it. And I've talked about it in
mm,
series one. And that is
yeah.
absolutely brilliant because that just flows beautifully from series one of continuing the conversation with
Lovely.
me
Oh,
into
good.
today.
Good.
So perfect, brilliant, and important, really
Mm,
important to talk about because it is another super skill.
yeah.
We're going to go into the emotional reality of healing. So,
Ooh.
section two. Thank you for sharing so much with us already. You'll work with people experiencing everything from shame and self criticism to physical discomfort, inflammation. My words coming out all wrong today, I'm sorry. And long held emotional patterns. What emotional truths do you witness
Mm.
in those spaces that people outside the therapy room may not see?
Ooh, emotional truth. Oh my
We're getting
gosh.
a hippie feeling now. It's like,
Yeah.
mm,
It's a lovely question. I don't know whether people outside of the therapy room would notice them or not, to be honest. I
mm,
can't answer to whether they're specific to things that are cultivated in the space with me or not. Um, but some of the things that I think I'm able to try to get to a place with people is that connection to themselves, and the version of themselves that is desperately seeking healing, care, and resolution, and apology often. So there's very often a very hurt self internally, that has, for multiple different reasons, not been heard, not been soothed, and not been healed. So that's quite powerful, allowing people to realize that the way in which they're navigating the world in the here and now, and what is part of maintaining suffering, is that being in their old self, a self that is in the past, but that is kind of leading the show now and needs nourishing, needs acknowledging, needs validating,
yeah,
and needs nourishing.
really interesting answer that. I love that.
Mm. The other thing that I think very often, we uncover, it's quite a common theme, is how shame, guilt, and fear, and sadness are often overshadowed with other emotions,
Mm,
um, and pushed down. Um, but the one that I'm noticing more and more, maybe it's me getting older and wiser, I don't know, that has been squished down the most for a lot of people is anger. And anger that is justified. Anger that never got a place for expression, never was allowed to be shown, never was vented, and never again, never was soothed appropriately. So there are some really strong feelings that are hidden with other strong feelings, if you know what I
mm,
mean, the layers on top.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
no, it's complicated, and that's why we're
mm,
here to talk about the human side of care and
yeah,
care at
yeah.
every level because it's all relevant.
Mm.
Brilliant, thank you. Y- I'm left speechless after every answer. I mean, you're just amazing.
Oh,
Wow. I think I've got the answers, and then I'm like just absolutely blown out the water with all this information. It's amazing.
thoughts.
Your work requires a balance of honesty, compassion, and
Mm,
attunement. When someone is facing deep distress or long
mm,
standing patterns, you've touched on this already,
mm.
how do you hold that balance between being truthful and being gentle?
Oh, it's very difficult actually, and I'm not sure I always 100% have got it right.
I
And
knew
you
you
very
were going to
quick,
say that, but you
yeah,
do.
you very
You
quickly know
do.
when you've got it wrong. But most often, um, and I've come to a point, let's start from the now. I've come to a point now where I've realized that I need to be able to say what I can observe and what I think may be going on, despite that potentially causing or adding distress. Because what I've realized is that many of the people that I see, and lots of them have had various different types of interventions over the years, is that no one's really cut to the chase. And no one's really labeled and said the difficult thing. Um, but what I would say is that I spend a long time getting to know people first.
Mm,
I don't launch into difficult and deep-seated stuff with people until it feels like they understand me, I understand them, and we are connected in that
yeah,
helpful and caring space. And that can
absolutely.
take a long, yeah, exactly. And that can take quite a long time. And I do always set the scene. I do always say to people,
You do.
once we get going, um, I'm probably going to say things that are a little bit challenging to what you have
Yeah.
kind of built as a way of understanding. And that might
Yes.
jar sometimes, but believe me, it's coming from a helpful and caring place every time. Every time. And of
Yeah,
course,
100%.
every time I meet someone, I check in with how their world has been since I saw them last. And, I kind of ascertain the stressors and things that are happening day to day that might might impact on someone's capacity to reflect or think about difficult things. So it is there are lots of techniques in there, as well as also building a relationship underneath it all that is modeling trust. And to me, compassion is about kindness, but it's not always about protecting people from hearing the things they need to hear. There needs to be boundaries. There needs to be a sense of accountability. There needs to be all the things that children need, for example, as well as kindness. They need rules, and they need honesty, and they need the edges pointed out to them in order for them to feel safe.
A safe
So I kind of
space.
see,
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
I
So I
totally
kind of see
understand.
my, exactly. I
Yeah,
feel like I kind of see my role as creating those safe spaces, and that sometimes means saying the things that someone doesn't want to hear, and then I show up again to hear how that felt.
totally agree. Brilliant. And you are 100% honest. Love it. It's brilliant,
Yeah.
but in a lovely, lovely way. You've supported people with mild learning disabilities, autistic
Mm.
adults, and individuals navigating complex emotional landscapes. What emotions do people carry
Mm.
quietly, often invisibly, that we don't talk about enough?
Yeah, I think I touched on this in a question before, but
You did. We're
for
just going to
me,
go a bit
yeah.
deeper if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, no, it's fine. The one of the reasons I years ago started doing compassionate psychology and yoga workshops in my spare time
Mm.
in my local community was to start conversations about shame, because shame to me is something that people hold
Mm.
um, internally, as you say, quietly, but that
Mm.
has a massive impact on both our bodies and our minds. Posturally, people who experience a lot of shame eventually close in. They call it wounded heart syndrome. They close in. We know that that then has
Yeah,
more effects on how we experience the bodies, and generally just kind of a sense of confidence, esteem, all that stuff.
yeah.
So impacts on the body, but in terms of the mind, we develop ways to protect ourselves from that emotion of shame, and sometimes those are not healthy either. Or we switch into other emotional states in order to cover up that shame, and again, that in a lot of people can be causing lots of problems. So becoming angry as a reaction to feeling shame is quite a common phenomenon.
You are so
But
good.
then, well, that what happens with that anger is that it pushes people away,
Mm.
when what the person really needs for shame is people to come in close
Yeah.
and soothe. So for me, uh, demystifying emotions has been a really key part of everything I've done, even with people with learning disabilities.
Mm.
Teaching about the evolution of emotions, why we have them, what they're doing for us, what the benefits of each one of them is, and why it's totally normal to feel that way. And to build the competencies to have that feeling and not be derailed by it, or not try and push it away, or not try and
Mm.
hide it, because
S-
they're
s-
healthy. They're telling it, every single emotion is telling us something. And if we don't listen or attune to it, it doesn't help us flourish.
Feeling emotional. I just think that's such an amazing answer.
No.
You're amazing. You're
Wow.
such a clever lady. Oh my gosh. I knew this
Well,
conversation would be amazing, but you're blowing me away. This
oh,
is,
Sadie, you're so kind. I mean, so much of what I share and talk about is learned, and
s-
I've made it my business to cascade this wisdom that I feel more people should have, because it was so helpful to me in healing,
yeah,
growing, becoming a more balanced person, and by no means perfect. Everyone knows that, but I'm
no one
definitely a
is.
exactly. But I'm definitely a more comfortable version of myself now than I was 20 years ago when I started, a more authentic version of myself, a more regulated version of myself, connected. And I feel like I was privileged to get that information by being able to learn and being able to access studies and university, or being able to pay for yoga classes or go to yoga training.
Yeah.
I got that wisdom because of those things, and I know that that is a luxury, and not everyone has that. And lots of people have the exact antithesis of learning, which is about shame, about self criticism, l- creates low self worth, that is punitive, potentially taking people's sense of self in a completely opposite direction. So for me, it was really important to get that knowledge out there. It's not mine really. And you're kind to say that I'm clever, but I collect it and then I give it back. That's my goal always.
The way you articulate, and I mean, I've been to your yoga class, and I'm going to tell all the viewers that this lady is incredible at setting a safe space. I was
No.
nervous to walk in the first time,
Were
and
you?
you put me at ease within
Did
seconds,
I? Oh, I'm
and I
glad.
knew I was safe, and therefore it didn't matter
Yeah.
whether I fell over doing a warrior
No.
pose. It didn't matter, and you
No.
just made me feel so comfortable.
I'm so
And
glad.
I was whoever I've met, if they say, "Oh, we've done Julia's class," they all say the same.
Do
And to
they? Oh,
talk to
that's
you
so
today
nice.
at this level, because I don't in a yoga class,
No,
it's
it's
like
very
trying to
difficult, isn't
breathe.
it?
um, it's just
Trying to
such a
balance.
privilege. Like, I knew this would be an amazing conversation, and the fact that I can use technology to help get this out to as many people as possible
Yeah.
as a learning
Yeah.
tool is incredible. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
just
glad.
hear everything you said, and I think that's a fantastic, positive message, but so true as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's amazing. We're going to go on to inclusion now, which is again leading into trying to get out to everybody.
Sure.
Embodiment and changing the narrative.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, I just got to breathe myself. It's just amazing. You move away from rigid diagnostic labels unless they're helpful.
I do.
What barriers do you see in the way society understands mental health? And
Mm.
what needs to shift for people to feel more empowered in their healing?
Yeah. Um, yeah. So the medical model
Mm,
has a lot to answer for. In some ways, it's been incredible and amazing for human development and moving things forward for us as a species. But diagnosis applied to mental health had a place, had a time. Um, as a non-medic, I've never used diagnosis because I'm not trained to use it. So it's not a thing that I'm kind of um, capable of using. So I don't. But it's really difficult.
it is
As a
difficult.
society, people have been trained by this model of understanding themselves, whether it's physical health or mental health. And so it's commonplace language and exchange to describe certain ways of being or experiencing the world with a diagnostic label. But for me, as you know, I try not to use them because it tries to put lots of people in the same category with the same set of experiences, which to me makes no sense because we are all so entirely different. You know, we have so many billion neurons in our brain that I don't understand how one person's experience could be the same as another.
Too true.
And
Too
and
true.
the model is there to be able to lean towards giving medication to heal. So that to me is a bit of a problem because sometimes there isn't a medication that will work for people. But what people have then been coached into is thinking about themselves as having something wrong with them, rather than thinking about themselves as having a response to a set of circumstances that anybody in the same shoes would have had, because we are built to survive and we're built based on our experiences. Um, so for me, the blocks are that it's held close to the chests of all human beings at the moment. And the platforms for alternative narratives are much, much smaller and a lot less powerful. Um, so, and again, that's why I've pushed out my workshops and different kind of ways of offering different models and understanding to just try and give people a different angle on why they might be suffering in their mind and body. Um, Obstacles have been that many of our systems are built on the diagnostic module. Many of our sort of free systems, especially the NHS, are built on a diagnostic module. And I don't know that that's easily navigable or going to change in a hurry. There are many people out there who want it to, but it's quite tricky. So that's one kind of what did you say? Obstacle.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
the other is this might be a bit controversial, but to have a diagnosis that somebody else has given you with a treatment that somebody else has to give you means that there isn't a sense of responsibility for the person or a sense of empowerment for the person to
That's not
then
controversial. That's true.
evolve and grow. And
I know
it's
exactly what you mean.
disempowering over
Mm.
time to not be given the tools or the messages about there is no just this is the way you are. You can reauthor yourself at any point in your life, regardless of what external resources you've got. We all have the capacity, we're all neuroplastic, we all have the capacity to think, feel, and do differently. And or to be supported to do that if that's a requirement for you, you know, you need additional support. Um, but that is a capacity for almost everybody. Um, so for me, that's another obstacle is that people have been coached into it's not me, it's not, I can't, this is just the way I am. I've got an illness, I can't do anything with that. And that's kind of really sad in a way because many people are then being kept in a position of disability.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's almost
um,
led us into a society where I've spoken to many people and I'm noticing a really strong common theme, which is people do not feel like they're enough. And this is coming through more and more strongly in our
Broken.
generation. And I think that
Yeah.
ties in nicely with everything you've just said. You know,
Yeah.
it's why don't we look at what we can do rather than what we can't do?
Mm, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
There's no assessment of when it's going well and the strengths in the
mm,
mental health world formally. Um, I
very
found being in
interesting.
other communities, um, mind experiences, mind body experience are more celebrated and understood. And, you know, like there are a wider strategies for building better connection and better self management through self study. Yoga is one of those tools. Um, but you know, self study and the capacity self study has to be learnt as well for some people, and it's letting people know that it might feel like really out of your reach, but you are not broken. You know, you know you are someone who can be the best version of yourself if you want to.
Beautiful. Love
Mm.
that. Thank you. Thank you. Your work integrates yoga, body based interventions, and psychological models. What
Mm.
have these embodied practices taught you about healing, and what does
Yeah.
true integration look like when it's done well?
So I've very much come around to understanding that different people need different hooks for growth and change, and not one thing often, but many things at once. And a lot of change in micro ways is better than trying to change one big aspect of who we are. Um, so what I've learned is that the best way we can cultivate change is to create better sense of connection to ourselves and then use the tools within our minds, within our bodies, within our imagined world, within our relationships, um, within our organization, you know, like how we're connecting to others, our community. We need to work at all of those levels to flourish. We need to look at all those levels to flourish. And if you just think, I'm going to work on my thoughts and try and be more neutral in my thoughts or more positive, but your relationships are toxic, then that ain't going to cut it really. Not much is going to shift for you. Equally, if you're working on um, altering your breath pattern so that it's a more nourishing breath and more restorative for your entire system, but you're working a job 24/7, and it's exhausting, and your central nervous system is burnt out, then it doesn't really matter how much you practice breathing. Uh, You've got to change your system. And similarly, if you can't imagine yourself at your compassionate best because you don't know what compassion looks like, how are you going to get to where you want to be? So there's working physiologically, working on your body, working on your facial expression, working on your thoughts, working on your relationships, working on your lifestyle, your job, whatever it is, all those layers have to happen. And I suppose what I've learnt is it's better to make changes in a micro way on everything as much as you have the energy and time for, and doing that in a balanced way,
Yeah.
than to just think, well, it's just my thoughts. I just need to think more positively.
Mm.
Because, that isn't what's wrong, usually.
And there you go. You're holistic. You're coming at it from the
Mm,
whole.
yeah.
Perfect. Love that. Thank you. You've seen people move from self blame and suffering into greater self understanding and agency. What helps
Mm,
that shift happen?
yeah. So there's definitely something about having a cheerleader. I like to see myself as that cheerleader for people, an encourager, a fan, a motivator, um, in an attuned way, like
Mm,
responding and reacting to what the person is bringing, noticing the changes,
very true.
noticing the good. Because often there isn't anybody else to do that, and we're not that good at doing it for ourselves. So having a cheerleader is really good. Having a community really, really helps. One of the things I noticed years and years and years ago was that didn't matter what diagnosis a person had, it didn't matter what type of problem they were presenting with, it didn't really matter how that was manifesting. The common denominator for me was loneliness. And many, many, many of the people that I was working with were in unhealthy or not good enough quality relationships, or on the edges of everything, going home a lot alone and not feeling held in mind by another helpful and caring adult. So for me, moving someone to a position of connectivity to others, but also the cultivation of a version of themselves that can soothe that loneliness, that can become responsive and attuned caregiver that they perhaps have been lacking through no fault of their own. Um, so there are two things there: having a cheerleader, but also cultivating self compassion to be able to soothe the other versions of the self that are feeling lost, disconnected, and encouraging people into community, out of a community that is not helpful and not caring, and into community that is. Um, we're not built to be alone.
No.
We might all find relating to other people different. We might need different amounts of that or in different ways, but we're not built to be isolated.
No.
And when we don't feel loved or we don't feel held in mind, we start to go wonky. It's
Yeah.
in our wiring.
Yeah. In our
So
DNA.
exactly. So
Yeah.
connectivity and social connection to me is one of the biggest things that I can try to help someone experience more of, alongside all the other self-development stuff that they might be doing for themselves, their breath work and their body work and their mind-based work and all that stuff. But if they do that with me and then they go home to an empty home where they don't feel held in mind, that's really challenging. So yeah, so I don't think I've answered your question really straightforwardly, but those are two things: having a cheerleader, self-compassion, and
Yeah.
community.
I think what I'm getting from what you're saying is that what helps that shift happen is when your inner and your outer world are aligned.
That's exactly it. Sadie, well, that was well put, and I wish I'd said that.
It was a lovely answer, though. I didn't want to get in the way because I was really enjoying myself.
Oh, I could have saved us a whole 5 minutes with that.
It was wonderful. I loved it. Right,
Mm.
with last section, leadership, courage, and future possibilities, because we always like to look forward at the end.
Sure,
You provide clinical supervision and
I
support
do.
other professionals. What do you wish more leaders and practitioners understood about holding space, not just
Yeah,
clinically, but humanly?
yeah. I think there's something about common humanity.
Hmm.
We are all in the same boat. Being
Mm.
human is really, really difficult, and we
Mm.
are all suffering. Um, Regardless of the actual other things that happen to us, the sort of day in, day out stuff, life as a human is really tricky.
Yeah.
We've got loss, illness, suffering, all that stuff, stress. Um, so there's something about remembering that everyone's struggling,
Mm.
and also to offer your own experience to that, so as
Yeah.
not to create a them and us between you and your people, your minions, I suppose. Um, I've always brought my own experience when I'm working with people to bring alive the concepts and to say, I am lived experience that change can happen.
Mm.
This was me before, this is me now, and this is what I did
100%.
in the
Mm.
middle. So there's sharing that. And then there is holding, being compassionate and the qualities of compassion in every interaction. So being wise but gentle, being kind but boundaried,
Mm.
being attuned, um, but also modeling healthy ups and downs in emotions, and then managing through that. So there's role modeling compassion and offering compassion. Um, so for me, those are really key features in building systems differently. Um, it's about connection. It's about shared common humanity. It's about recognizing that none of us are finding this life easy,
Mm.
and we're all just trying to get through, and find meaning and purpose
Yeah.
together. And what we don't need is giving each other extra stuff to deal with.
I think you have just said everything a great leader is, and that is
No.
emotionally intelligent.
Mm.
So brilliant. Thank you. And we need more Julias. That's all
No,
I can say to
you're
that.
so kind.
You describe education as a key feature of helping people manage difficult emotions, and
Sure.
you empower people to take ownership of their healing. And anyone listening to this conversation can clearly hear that from you during this conversation. What possibilities open up when people understand their minds and bodies more
Mm,
deeply?
sure. Well, once people have connected without fear,
Mm.
without squishing it down or without disconnect to their bodies and minds, and have cultivated some skills to tolerate what comes up, they can start to navigate that, and
Yeah.
they can start to smooth the impact of that out and create a more neutral or contented experience of themselves and the world around them.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. The other is they start to be able to plan and predict a future with joy, with lightness, with balance,
Yeah.
with opportunity, because the brain is no longer sending the system into a threatened state, which is about being ruminative and exploring problems and thinking about the dark corners of the mind and dark corners of life. Once they've made these progress, these steps to connecting, the brain can let go of that job that it's been given for so long and start to do the other stuff, that more soothing, connected, compassionate stuff that is so essential for getting through this really difficult life that we've got. um, so for me, it's sort of from languishing to flourishing and everything that
Absolutely.
comes with that.
Let's not survive, let's thrive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Looking ahead, last question, I promise. Sorry, it's just been absolutely brilliant. Enjoying every minute here. I don't want it to end, but we do
Thank
have to
you.
end.
No.
What's calling you forward?
Mm. Gosh. So me personally, not in my business, but me personally, I'm trying out some new things for myself this year. So
Brilliant.
I'm looking to just come back to some of those principles of loosening my grip,
Hmm.
uh, allowing things to come to me,
Yeah, love that
trusting
one.
trusting in
Hmm.
my environment and my life, but also finding a little bit more balance so that I can flourish.
Hmm.
So just like everybody else, sometimes I can end up doing more than I need to
Yeah.
do and have not enough time to rest and recover. So for me this year, I'm just taking things a little bit slower. I've stopped teaching one of my regular yoga classes, which was a real wrench for me.
Mm.
But the reason for doing that was just in recognition of I'm a little bit older and I need a little bit more time to reflect, learn, grow, imagine
Yes.
than I was
Yes.
giving myself. So
Yes.
there's that. And then I haven't run any of my workshops for a little while because I've been quite busy.
Mm.
And I've got some growing ideas about
Love that.
monthly
Let them grow.
workshops.
Ideas, creative
Yeah,
freedom.
growing,
That's joy.
exactly.
That is
I don't
joy.
want to force things this year.
No,
That's what I'm trying not
that's
to
what
do. But
that's my
I have
approach.
some thoughts about an off the mat yoga series. So, doing some sessions that are about meeting people to connect, maybe share some food and talk about some of this stuff in a more relaxed, fluid way than just being on a yoga mat and encouraging people to move and self study. So, just a little bit more of that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because I would like to connect with people a little bit more and sort of fill my cup with other people's knowledge and
I
lives and
yeah.
stories.
I've just had a really strong idea come into my head that I could see you doing, and that's the
Go
Julia
on.
retreat weekend, where you get everybody in doing all these wonderful things, and you do the odd class, but it's your show. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
that is the future. I could see
that
that.
would be so nice. Interestingly, a few people last year asked me about retreats, and I've
Oh, they're
never had
fascinating.
time
Yeah.
since many years ago. I ran a paddleboarding and yoga retreat a couple times with a friend
Mm.
of mine, Kev Brady, which was fantastic. But since then, I haven't had time. But I am
Yeah.
thinking about how I can get myself into a lovely environment and do a cost-effective, affordable retreat for
Yeah.
people.
Anyone got a tent and
Um,
a field? Let's
exactly.
go.
That's all we need and a barbecue. We're off.
We'll just link up the community. Right, you're in that corner doing
Yeah.
that. You write it out.
Yeah.
We'll follow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that. Anyway, the next set part of that last question, nearly there. What impact do you hope your next chapter, despite the Julia retreat idea as well, whether in therapy, yoga, supervision, or community work, will have on the people you support? So that's following on from where you're going forward.
So, what impact will it have?
Mm,
Well, I remember going to a conference many, many moons ago when I was first learning about compassion focused therapy. There's a Compassionate Mind conference every year, and it's incredible.
mm.
And I haven't been for a couple of years, and I'd like to go next year. But I remember and listening to Christine Neff, who is one of the gurus in self compassion
All
made
right.
Western, because it's been around for a long time as a
Yeah,
concept, but she's sort of
yeah,
really brought it alive in a Western way. And she talked about compassion, self compassion, having an impact 3 people deep. So if you personally can develop a better connection to yourself and more
mm,
compassion towards yourself, then the people around you will benefit, and then the people around them will benefit. So you're kind of changing the world by changing yourself. So that's where I started from.
mm.
What I really want to do is think about how to bring that awareness into the minds of young people.
Right.
Because for me, if young people, the young people that who are really struggling now with the rise of social media and all of the stuff that's happening
Yeah.
for them in terms of the overload of information and the push towards diagnostic labels and
Mm.
all that kind of
Our
stuff.
future generation.
Yeah, if I can get some stuff in the minds of young people, then that will have a massive impact,
Mm.
even just in my local community. I'm only ever thinking Gloucester. I'm never thinking
Oh,
bigger than Gloucester.
I've got
I'm
to,
thinking Gloucester.
yeah, I've got to say in that if everyone did their little bit on on their own doorstep, my
Yeah.
God, we'd be in a different place. You know,
Yeah.
I
I'm
really
doing
believe in that.
some Yeah, exactly. And I'm doing some, I've been lucky enough to kind of join forces with the Waterways Museum down at the docks, who
Oh,
are part of the
yes.
Canals and Rivers Trust.
Yeah, yeah,
They're going to host me doing sup yoga this year again, so yoga on the paddle boards.
yeah.
But also, I'm doing two workshops as part of an offer that they have put together for Young Gloss. So I'm
Yes,
kind of
fantastic charity.
trialing this year just a couple
Mm,
sessions with younger people to see if I can help with any of this wisdom and make it accessible to the younger minds because they're the future.
I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's so forward thinking. Brilliant. And a great way to finish off the last section about where we're all going.
We're all going.
Thank you, Julia, so much for your
You're
honesty
very
and
welcome.
time and joining me today. What you've shared remind us that healing is not just a clinical process, it's a deeply human one. It's the courage to meet ourselves honestly. It's the willingness to soften self blame. It's the
Mm.
slow, steady work of reconnecting with our bodies, our emotions, and our sense of possibility. Your work shows us that therapy is not only about understanding suffering, it's about cultivating compassion, agency, and embodied wisdom. It's about people feeling supported, seen, and empowered to flourish in ways that feel true to them. As we close, I invite you listening to reflect on where could you offer yourself a little bit more compassion this week, and what small act of embodied care, a breath, a pause, a moment of grounding, might help you feel more connected to yourself. Thank you for listening. This has been continuing the conversation with Sadie. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, of each other, and keep reflecting, growing, and caring. Thank you.
Amazing.